Strokes move the world. Yes, it does.
All right. What's up, everyone? This is Jason Tucker, and this is WPwatercooler, episode number 259. Today's topic is WPwatercooler. We're going to be talking. Oh, my goodness. I'm all confused right now. Steve singing and everything. It screwed me all up. Is WordPress predictions for 2018. So let's go around the room real quick, get everyone introduced. Dave. Oh, my gosh, Dave, you're here. What's up?
Dave, I am. Hey, I'm Dave Markowski. I am the AM PM for Pixel Jar.
The AM PM?
Yeah.
What's the AM?
You're a convenience store?
I'm a convenience store.
Check you out.
You're a convenience store of knowledge.
Account manager, project manager.
AM PM. All right. Cool.
I never closed.
Oh.
Steve, you need to come up with a really cool acronym in just a second. Jason, tell us about yourself.
I'm Jason Cosper. I am the senior performance engineer over at Liquid Web, and I am still writing WordPress 4.8 on all my checks.
So you're the CPE.
Cosper.
I didn't get
what
the
about you,
CPE
Sarah?
part. I didn't get that. That's what,
What about you, Sarah? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I am a product manager. I also do some project management, and you should hire me to manage your product. And also come see me speak at WordCamp Phoenix. Tickets are on sale.
Tickets are on sale. Tickets now on sale. So you're a PM.
Have the speakers been announced yet for Phoenix?
Yes, they have.
They made a partial announcement.
Did
They
They made
did.
a graphic with my face on it between
Sorry.
Andy Reagan and Katrina.
I should look that up real quick and see if I was included.
That's a weird sandwich, I gotta tell you.
Say, how about you?
Hey, hi. Yeah, coming to you live from Long Beach. Who am I? Say Reed at Say Reed Media on all the things. I make WordPress, preach WordPress, teach WordPress. Oh wait, it said that out of order. At Say Reed Media on all the things, all of them, every single one. No, that's not true. Hello, maybe.
Steve, what about you? Tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm Steve Zangen. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I run the OC WordPress meetup. And I will also be speaking at WordCamp Phoenix. It looks like I'm on the website.
Look at you, looking at the graphics.
Wow, look at there's me.
That's how some artists found out about Coachella this year. They were on the poster.
Whoops.
Oh, when I had an artist working at Coachella, that's how I found out.
Well, Eminem found out,
Yeah,
probably,
like,
right?
wait
You
a
looked at it and
second.
went, whoa, oh, I'm playing. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, this lineup looks so great. Oh, I have some work to do.
What is that?
Awesome.
So
I'm
Steve
Jason
has
Tucker.
written a
You can find me
speaker.
at Jason
Yeah.
Tucker on Twitter. My website is jasontucker.blog, and I do another show called WP Blab. You feel free to go take a look at that, and that happens on Thursdays, and we talk about social media marketing using WordPress. All right, let's talk a little bit about predictions in 2018. Say you came up with this topic. What's your prediction?
Well, I have more than one. What are my predictions? Let's change that real quick. But my first one is that I predict Steve will be writing his WordCamp Phoenix presentation in about a month. That's my prediction.
I think the over under is 7 minutes before I go on stage.
Yeah,
and I'll take the under.
Predicting that. Just like he just found out he's on it.
Slides are 10 days in advance.
Who? What?
Slides
You know what? There's a workaround for that. Just don't do slides.
Slides are due. Okay, yeah, I predict no one will pay attention to when slides are due again.
Yes.
For the rest of forever.
Those are both good predictions.
Those are bogus deadlines every time. Like, who's enforcing that? If someone was enforcing a deadline, it would be a deadline. But without an enforcer, it's just a line. Okay. Remember that. Bits of wisdom brought to you by me.
Okay.
So we know that Gutenberg is coming down the line, and we're all going to end up having to. We all know that we're going to end up having to deal with that at some point here. But it seems like a lot of folks. It seems like a lot of folks are already using Gutenberg and building products around it now. And I'm super excited to see that people are building Gutenberg blocks, and they're trying to come up with interesting ways of being able to make those things work. What have you guys seen Gutenberg wise that you're interested in seeing for this year?
I know Tammy Lister is working on a theme for all of the blocks in Gutenberg, effectively a theme that has support for every single block in default Gutenberg. It's a really interesting project. I'll throw it into make sure it makes it into the show notes. But she has the version that she's using on her site, and then also she's kind of done like a bare bones version of it as well, so people can kind of follow along and fork and make their own versions of the theme. So,
is bare bones a new Bootstrap, or is that just a word you're using? Just like, is bare bones a framework
I don't think it was a technical
that I should know about?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
sometimes I can't tell.
So how I know a major concern that we were talking about regarding Gutenberg towards the end of last year was about how it was going to play with advanced custom fields or just custom meta boxes in general if you were not using the ACF plugin. Has there been any movement on that?
Yes, ACF has put out a lot of information about their process with adapting, and they basically like, we're adapting. To which I say, thank you. Thank you for adapting.
That was it. Yeah. No, they have actually a long blog post that kind of talks about their year in review, and they talked about how they're going to address some of the issues, and I'm sure a lot of it's going to come out of the development work.
ACF?
They're going to be Steve Gutenberg compatible.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think meta boxes are even more so than I think that's the main concern for most devs that I've spoken to, because that is a tool that we've all been using for a really long time, and so that is the editor is like, okay, whatever, you got a TCM, TMC, TMZ, whatever it's called, the TCM editor, TMZ editor. It's different.
MCE?
MCE?
What are you talking about? Tiny MCE?
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, if you're talking about it like as an editor, it's like, okay, fine, like, great, new editor, but it's the impact that it's having on the infrastructure that I think is really been the core concern. So someone like ACF stepping up and being like, we're doing this. I mean, that's the reason I've been tweeting about this. Like, that's the reason that, back when we started this show, I was like all hard coding, pro hard coding, and roll your own and don't use plugins because stuff. But I drank the Kool-Aid and have been using ACF, and now it's like, this is why, so that they can do that development and make it work. And I can roll it out to the peeps. And
ACF is rad. I've been using ACF for years.
Yeah, if you had a memory, then you would know that we've had this conversation.
I understand. I don't have much of a memory, but I do know that we've had this conversation.
I'm sure Jason can Google it and figure out when we talked
about
that.
Back in episode 112.
Yeah. When you guys are still giving me hard coding shit for hard coding, I don't know.
Yeah, no, but between ACF and also having Beaver Builder back on December 28th, they wrote a blog post regarding the future of Beaver Builder using using these technologies with Gutenberg and stuff. Just trying to see how all those things are going to play out. It's interesting, and it's cool to see that people are now building they're building companies off of how Gutenberg blocks are going to be built. So there's a site called WPwatercooler that started up recently that is doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what Yoast is doing. They did a post earlier that was like, here's some things we're thinking about, and I know that he's got some people focused on the project, and I think that that's going to be a really important thing for people who aren't doing the development side of things but are doing content creation, because Yoast is kind of the de facto standard right now for SEO stuff. So I
was going to say, Dave, wasn't there didn't Jordan do a post on the contributors to WordPress in 2017? And I think Yoast was the single biggest company contributing to.
Oh, is that right? No, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Nice.
They are really working hard to make sure that WordPress and Yoast play nicely together.
Yeah,
I mean, their entire world is in a meta box, so it's kind of they're kind of like, well, don't take this away.
Well, and not only that, they have to look at those boxes, the various blocks that are in Gutenberg, to be able to figure out what is that, what's that content like, and how are we gonna, get it either reading that content to figure out, is there text I need to look at that is pertinent to SEO? How should I apply those types of things? How the stoplight thing is going to work with, is it per block? Is it, all together, everything that's on the screen? There's a lot to kind of process in this, and it's interesting to see how this is all going to end up working out.
I think it's really interesting when something like this happens. It's like kind of like, it's almost like, a hurricane or some sort of natural disaster. Like the business is chugging along and doing things, and they've got, their development plans and whatever. And then, the core comes along and it's like, we're changing. And it's like, everyone's like, okay, stop and adapt. And I think that's really interesting. But I mean, that's typical, really in the tech community. But I think these linchpin points are so interesting in technology. Like, I feel like this is a make or break year for WordPress. Like, if this rollout goes well and people can grasp what Gutenberg is trying to do, and by people, I mean users specifically. If the users can grasp it and it's not totally just a huge cluster of transition, then I think it could change everything and really set WordPress ahead of the game back where it was, like, say, 5 years ago. And if it goes badly, Shopify has an affiliate program, so.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because one of the things that we see just repeated throughout time is that the early adopters of a thing are very technologically savvy, and as a piece of technology becomes more and more mainstream, the user becomes much less technologically sophisticated. And we're at a point now where WordPress is powering a ginormous amount of the internet. And the average
huge tracts of land.
Exactly.
Well, and 2 years ago, we were told, learn JavaScript deeply.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, exactly.
That was lies.
Sorry, I cut you off. My apologies.
That was lies.
No, I mean, but Jason's right. A couple of years ago, we were talking about learning JavaScript, as it pertains to your WordPress development. And, right now, as more and more people are using WordPress, the average person who's going to be managing the site is going to be much less able to do things like that. So I think WordPress is really going to need to be able to address those things. Like,
that was more of a development trend that they were trying to get going. This is more of a content creation trend. I mean, there's a couple of different tracks when you're dealing with WordPress.
Well, of course. Right. But even when you look at just the dashboard that your average user has access to, when you look at the average WordPress dashboard, and then you look at the dashboard of a certain competitor, one looks much less intimidating. Yeah.
Well, and that's that's something that needs to.
Are you paid about that, Steve? He's like, oh my God.
No, it's something. It's something that really does need to be looked at because there are competitors now, right? There's competitors all over the place for
there was nothing,
right?
Nothing on the same.
And I think one of my predictions for 2018 is we're just going to see more, right? As WordPress becomes more and more complex, which it is, we're going to see other alternatives come to be.
I believe they call it disruption.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's getting disrupted in here. So Steve, take out all your code.
So Steve, when with your business meetup that you guys got going on, what are some of the things that you're hearing from folks regarding how they should be structuring their businesses in the upcoming year? I know you guys have to be talking about some of that stuff, right?
Are you saying from a financial standpoint? That's a weird.
Just in general, just in general, as someone who runs a business, either building it off of WordPress or is dependent on WordPress, in the upcoming year, what are folks looking at that they need to be mindful of, business wise?
Well, I mean, it's no secret, and you guys kind of mentioned it during the pre-show, but I started a Shopify meetup because it's something I'm interested in, and mostly I'm doing it because it's something that some of our clients are interested in, right? So our clients are looking at Shopify as an alternative to WooCommerce, right? Shopify is nothing new; it's been around for a while, but last year they went public and they grew and they changed some things, and so I think that is a legitimate competitor for your e-commerce needs. And so we're starting to look at that, and I'm only looking at that because my clients are asking for it, right? They, I have some clients that have already, jumped ship. I don't know, how things are in the Squarespace or Wix world, because I don't deal with any of those, but I hear, I know, but we hear those things all the time, right?
I saw something yesterday about Wix's numbers, and they were actually showing like a 300% growth. And I forget what the period was, but it was a significant growth.
Wix has they really spend a lot of spend on marketing, and they are marketing well, which is a big deal because people believe what they're told.
But I mean, on top of that, they're marketing towards something. When people see the product, they see something that is just designed to look much more slick and less intimidating than the WordPress dashboard.
But marketing definitely comes into play here, right? So in the past, right, we've seen the WordPress community or the WordPress Foundation shy away from marketing, right? Now they now have an effort toward marketing, right? And I think that was did I say something funny? I think no, maybe. I think that was a mistake. I think that I think they're behind the eight ball on that one a little bit, and they're now playing catch up for some of these other competitors.
Yeah, it was like self-marketing, and also the community was out there doing the marketing. The community was the pushing it. People were like, there weren't ads about which platform you should use in the same way that there are now. And so when people needed a website, they would ask their people or their dev or whoever they hired, and that person would give the answer and be like, this is the one you got to do. But now people like yourself, like others, are like, well, here are your options. There are now these different options, and let's talk about, what those are. So it used to be really marketed directly through that developer and through the shops, and I think that's really what's shifted. But
I also think they have an intrinsic problem with marketing. What message do you tell? I mean, even amongst the people here, we all do something a little different with WordPress. So what is the sell? What do they market? If you want to compete in the Wix space where it's smaller people trying to build a website, what's the message, and how does that message work for someone like Steve's company who's doing the higher end stuff?
And here's the thing. Here's what I think the shift is, right? You just said was an interesting perception that Wix is for smaller people that are just building a website. I don't think it's that way anymore. Shopify now has Shopify Plus, which is for enterprise clients, right? Squarespace and Wix are making push toward enterprise, right?
Wix just released Wix Code, which allows you to use database stuff and get into the code, which is a direct knock to WordPress and WordPress's development community.
I know of a few WooCommerce sites in the past couple of years, large WooCommerce sites that have moved from WooCommerce to Shopify. Shopify is a credible threat. I don't want to necessarily say threat, but it's a credible threat to WooCommerce's growth.
It's a legitimate competitor.
I was going to say it's a viable platform is what I was going to say. But
legitimate competitor, viable platform, good terms, guys.
But their marketing
buzzword.
Not focused at the high end. Like the marketing that we're talking about here is definitely focused on the low end. When you're talking about Wix, you're talking about putting it on the Super Bowl ads. Yes. I mean, come on, that's not focused at.
Well, we're talking mass market.
But didn't WordPress have a commercial on Super Bowl last year? Or something like that?
Local commercials. And
WordPress.com did not. And see, that's also where you get into that problem of, which services, whether or not WooCommerce is a good thing or the right solution or whatever, you have a ton of other decisions to make to support WooCommerce. So, that is really a pain point, because it's not just, oh, we've decided to use Wix and you're done. We've decided to use WooCommerce and WordPress. Now it's, where do you want to be hosted? And what hosting setup do you want to have? And are you going managed hosting? And which type of managed host? And, what's your support thing? Is there someone in-house? There's just a lot there that kind of, in a way, separates what WordPress's original ethos was of decisions, not options. Now there's just like too many damn options. There's themes falling out of people's, pockets. There's like plugins for days. There's like, shoot, I dropped one. There's like, there's plugins for plugins. You know what I mean? It's like, plugins on plugins on plugins. What?
I think that there's something else that's for this year that's prediction as a prediction. The GDPR. The GDPR.
The author of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, George David Paul Ryan. Oh, that's bad. The GDPR is a new regulation that's coming through from Europe, and it's going to impact the way that we are allowed to collect and store and have to remove client information. There's been posts all over about it, and it is it's not something I think to be worried about, but I think it's definitely going to cause some additional work for a lot of folks, especially if you've got sites that are doing, business in the European Union.
So this is more than a modal that pops up saying, "Oh, by the way, we use this thing called cookies that we've been using for like the last 20 years on the internet, and we're going to track you for various items and that sort of thing." Which
nobody paid any attention to. That kind of it is more than that. According,
I think there's.
Go for it.
One of you talk. It's fine. I'll say it later. Don't worry.
Somebody.
According to this, because it's a regulation instead of I forget what the other pop-up thing was, but it's supposed to have more teeth to it, that they're able to enforce it a little more thoroughly. So yeah, it is something, and it talks also about like the ability to remove people who want to be removed. So when you talk about things like your Google Analytics and any kind of analytics data that you're tracking on sites, I think there's going to be some impacts there that are going to be interesting to deal with.
Mm-hmm. That's like the right to be removed and stuff. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. I've got a very bold prediction.
Okay, go for it.
I think security is going to be important in 2018.
I was going to say that. Damn it!
I know. It's bold.
So what's your focus? What's your focus, Steve?
Is there a point in having security anymore now that everyone's chips are completely pwned?
Yeah, it's free for all. It's just all open and out there.
I'm just going to toss my new MacBook Pro out the window.
AMD's for everyone. Let's make this happen.
Over. There is no privacy. Mark Zuckerberg is his happiness place.
So Steve, what's your focus on security? What are you thinking there?
I don't have one. I was just making a prediction.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna be important, and stuff's gonna happen with it.
We're all screwed. That's my prediction.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is I feel like there's a lot more regulations coming. We saw it last year with net neutrality. I think we're gonna start seeing some impacts from that. I mean, Comcast changed their website with their net neutrality rules like that day. They're like, we had this page ready to go because we don't care anymore, and they changed their tone of it immediately. They no longer promised not to throttle. They took it off immediately as soon as that vote was passed. And
that was my other prediction for 2018 is I think net neutrality, I think that however that pans out is going to have a big effect on our business in 2018.
I have a prediction. I predict that this community and this software is going to be hella different come December. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to look at where we're at, more so than any year, I would say in the last 5 years, see where we're at the end of this year. I think we've got Gutenberg basically coming in the middle of the year. We've got all those things. Like there's a shift. It's happening. If the country is still here, of course.
here's the issue, right? Let's say there are true
nuclear war. That's okay.
Let's say there are true slow lanes that are introduced, right? All we're doing right now is we're just keep bloating the code more and more. So the websites are getting bigger and slow lanes may be coming, right? We've got to be able to meet in the middle somewhere. So I predict that we're going to see a trend back towards 4-color GIFs.
Macromedia director. Yeah.
I mean, that's exciting.
And actually, we're going to see text-only websites.
I knew where you were going.
Can help with that type of thing. Gutenberg and it's is reformatting the way that we are approaching content. That's all shifting right now across the industry, and people are coming up with new ways to do things. And Gutenberg could do that. Gutenberg could help us make that leap, and so it could be game changing in the best way. In terms of being a super exciting thing, and everyone's like, "This is awesome and super fun." Like, so that's a real possibility. I just think the unknown part is super interesting. Like, it could go really either direction.
Here's a known. If you're using Visual Composer, I can't speak today. If you're using Visual Composer, you're not slow lane ready.
No, you're not ready for 2018 at all.
You're ready for 2014?
You're ready for 1999.
Yeah.
You know, everyone keeps talking about page builders and are page builders going to survive in Gutenberg? And, you know, I worked with a lot of page builders last year for clients who wanted that experience. They were tired of the more static. They're like, I want to do things with the thing and make stuff and be able to make a pretty page or whatever. And people are more, the general user is more connected to their website. And so people want to do more things with it. They want to make stuff happen. And I think that traditional themes are actually they're not responsive to that. They're not coming along. So page builders, which if you are using them in the way that I would think is correctly as, you know, design elements, as on the fly design things, they could still have a role because it's not necessarily about filling in these content management gaps, which is what Gutenberg is going to come in and take over. But it will maybe allow them to really take into that more dynamic design aspect that is needed and is, you know, so hopefully that's what they're thinking of. And now, you know, the design is going to stop being so static design, honestly, like, which is, even though stuff's moving, it's not dynamic. And I think page builders could be a big component of that.
I know this is a PG show, but default
PG-13.
Since when?
PG-13. Default themes are boring AF. All of the new
Did you just say AF on this show?
Yeah, AF.
Oh my gosh.
He's contractually obligated, actually, to say that.
Yeah.
Is that your new title?
They are. They're passé. It's like over. Like it's like you're stuck in this box, and it's like they were so revolutionary before, and they have proliferated into mundanity.
You can clock a WordPress site just by looking at generally how it's laid out. Like, you know, it's one of those things
you
where
can do that with any platform. It's really no one has been able to innovate on that design, on that kind of, a website is a website, except for you've got this whole concept of like this out of the box stuff. Morten was actually tweeting about it, called brutalism. Web design is like a big trend this year, whatever. But like people are trying to get out of literally the box.
I want everything to look crazy in 2018. I want people to just start getting nuts.
That's true. Coming at you. But see, and Gutenberg could help with that. You know, Gutenberg could be the answer to that. And you know, I really hope that it is. And we have the ability as a community to be more agile and iterate faster and make bigger moves than the corporate communities that have shareholders that have that sort of thing. So we have a huge advantage being all these independent components.
Yeah. So and to add on to that, you know, as much as the average user is getting less technologically sophisticated, they have a much more sophisticated sense of design. So they're seeing all of these pages on the web where they think, oh, that looks really great. I want to be able to do that. And they don't want to necessarily have to wait for a dev cycle to get that layout. So I think you're on.
I don't know.
Wow, Steve.
I don't know. I think yes. I'm with Cosper. I want everything to look great, but I don't want it to get in the way of the content, right? And that's where when you get all this junk on the front end of a website, right? Sometimes it's done.
Not junk. I don't want junk, but I do want things to look crazy. Yeah. I don't want 7,000 YouTube videos loading up when I hit the page, but I do want some crazy typography experiments. I want some crazy things like that, like
totally into it. But at the end of the day, I really just want my content, right?
Absolutely.
So this is like an argument back in the days of when Wired first started, right?
Well,
content or design more important.
I predict
going back to the net neutrality argument, I think we're going to have that cycle again.
Yeah. I'm excited by it because people are consuming content at this rate that is extreme.
Bring Shockwave back.
A lot of the time, the design and this bullshit is getting in the way. The marketing, the pop-ups. Yes. People are like, just feed me the data. I want the data. And then the design is not accelerating or helping that process. It's slowing the process. It's slowing the web page. It's slowing the process of development, and it's slowing the process of delivery, of people getting it in their eyeballs and in their brains. And I think it could be really exciting to see a new focus on content and how it's delivered.
Just want it in my eyeballs.
Just give it to me.
Edit that out,
you guys
please.
are crazy. I say let's everybody go back to Flash. Let's all go back to Flash, folks. That's about it. All right.
That was the quickest half hour we have ever done.
Yeah. Thank you very much for all of you for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. Go over to our website at WPwatercooler.com, and you can go to WPwatercooler.com/subscribe to find all the information about how to subscribe to this show and other shows that we do on this network. Thank you all, and you have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.